Opposition House Leader.
A blast from an improvised explosive device went off in a Mississauga restaurant. Initial reports are that a number of people are injured, some critically. On behalf of the Conservative Party and the official opposition, our thoughts and our prayers are with the victims and their families. Can the government provide this House with an update on the situation? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I join the member opposite in expressing our compassion and thoughts for those injured in last night's horrendous attack with an apparent improvised explosive device in Mississauga, and we hope for their speedy recoveries. Mr. Speaker, the Peel Regional Police Service are currently leading the investigation. 2 men are being sought, and anyone with information is, of course, encouraged to contact them, and we have offered the full support of federal law enforcement resources to this investigation. I'd like to advise this House that at this time, there is no indication of a nexus to national security. Our tremendous thanks, of course, go to all first responders who once again have showed their tremendous professionalism and compassion as they rush to help the victims of this terrible tragedy. Thank you.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let's review what we know about clam scam. The Fisheries Minister went out of his way to award a surf clam quota to a company which, 1, was run by a brother of a Liberal MP, 2, had the lowest percentage of Indigenous ownership of all the bidders, and didn't even own a boat when they were awarded the quota. Now the minister is under federal investigation for his action. Will the government scrap the cronyism and restart this bidding process?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, we are obviously happy to work with the Commissioner and answer any questions that he might have. Our government believes that increasing Indigenous participation in offshore fisheries offers a powerful opportunity to advance reconciliation. That's why we created a process to consult industry and Indigenous communities on potential participation in this surf clam fishery. This process was very similar to the one that was undertaken by the previous Conservative government, except they forgot to include Indigenous people. The expression of interest selected for next steps include 5 First Nations from Atlantic Canada and Quebec and would bring significant economic opportunities to these Indigenous communities.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
No, what we didn't do, Mr. Speaker, was award our friends and family with contracts when they didn't even own boats. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Fisheries Minister is under federal investigation. Communities in Newfoundland, such as Grand Bank, are suffering as a result of his actions. But we're hearing crickets from other Liberal MPs in Atlantic Canada. Nothing. Will the Veterans Affairs Minister from Newfoundland or the Health Minister from New Brunswick finally stand up to the cronyism coming from their cabinet colleagues and tell him to restart this bidding process?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud of our decision to introduce Indigenous participation, and it's consistent with our government's commitment to develop a renewed relationship between Canada and First Nations people. The Minister made this decision to allow for increased Indigenous participation in the fishery, and we reject any claim to the contrary in the strongest of terms, Mr. Speaker, no matter how many times they're repeated in this House. Our government is proud of this decision and how it will benefit the most amount of people in Atlantic Canada and Quebec, as well as 5 Indigenous communities in 5 provinces, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Lévis-Lobinière.
Monsieur le Président, tout comme on l'a déjà vu avec